everyone, it's Jake and Nadia. This is Buddy, this is Sedona, and our Bible boys downstairs, like usual, napping. And today we're going to talk about a really exciting film, Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel.
Volume 3.
Volume 3.
We watched it in theater. We haven't spoken about it at all.
Yeah.
What did you think of the film?
Okay, I would rate it 9.5 out of 10 off the bat. It was probably the best Marvel film I have seen.
Better than Spider-Man?
I think so. I really appreciated how much of storyline, like I really like that they focused on the side characters in previous films instead of just like Star-Lord. I love like the world building. Also obviously love like a lot of, I thought, metaphors. A lot of things correlated to real life, which is not always the case in these kind of films. And I really love that they didn't shy away from animal topics and subjects. It was really hard to watch in some scenes. You're definitely going to tear up. I definitely did. But yeah, I just didn't feel like it was a typical Marvel film. It was a lot like, I think, a theme of identity, how we identify and othering someone else. At the same time, the movie kind of broke a lot of different rules that Marvel previously has written. Makes you question your ideology. I thought the directing was really well done. I thought the whole visual effect was really well done as well. I'm really happy that they didn't go over the same cliche romantic lines as before, and it allowed the characters to change and evolve, which I think can be like, for example, Thor, Love and Thunder, I didn't feel like did that at all. It's interesting because I thought like from the previews or the end scene from Endgame, where you would think that Thor, at least I was under the impression that Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy would be one movie, and then having Thor Love and Thunder kind of see that they're actually going to be two entities instead, and being disappointed because Thor Love and Thunder I had more hopes for. So I just automatically went to theater assuming that this was going to be a disappointing film because I've been experiencing Marvel burnout. It's just a lot of things happening right there, and it's kind of like seems like every story is the same. This one was very nice to watch because it was very funny, very heartwarming, very, very sad. And yeah, honestly, I went out of the movie and made me think about our life and our world and how we operate and the impact of the viability we enjoy, quote unquote, in life, but also the impact of the environment and creatures. So I don't expect Marvel film to make me feel that way. But nonetheless, this one did. That's why I rated it higher. What did you think?
I think what really helps this movie is that it does feel conclusive. It feels like there's an ending. You know, a lot of these recent Marvel movies, most Marvel movies just feel like an endless story that's just constantly teasing the new thing. And this one felt like...
It feels like episodes, most of them.
It felt like you can watch Guardians 1, 2, and 3 and feel complete, although
I don't think you need to watch Guardians 1 and 2 if you just like know Endgame. I think Avengers, and if you know Endgame, then this kind of picks up right after Endgame. I think you're good on that because if you watch like Infinity War Part 1 of the last of the Phase 1 of the Marvel Avengers, then you will kind of see like a lot of recaps of how these characters are tied together.
Yeah, I think Guardians 2 is still my favorite of the trilogy, and I never was a huge fan of the first one, and this one was really good. I think it's the best Marvel has put out since Spider-Man. I would give it like a 7. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely felt like it overstayed its welcome a little bit. I thought that the MacGuffin is sort of like a MacGuffin throughout the movie, but you know, they're trying to find something to help a character. Kept going in that same track for a lot of the movie, and I got a little bored with that. The most interesting parts of the movie I thought were flashback scenes, and I wanted more of that, less of, you know, just because I felt like the movie was going for a more serious tone, which I appreciated, but I think the blend of comedy and seriousness didn't work so well. There were a lot of comedy scenes that no one in the theater laughed at. A bit surprising in that sense. So I thought the comedy landed flat a little bit, but the movie wasn't going for broad, comedy. So it was trying to do something more earnest. Not that comedy can't be earnest, but you know, just it was going for a more serious tone, and it sets that tone really well in the opening scenes of the movie. So it just really delivered. If you like these characters, if you're a fan of them, you're definitely going to be satisfied. They really send off each and every one of these characters really in a satisfying way. I got emotional watching, you know, some of the scenes, especially the ending, because it just felt very conclusive and very true to the characters. You know, it wasn't like big epic moments. It was just like heartfelt moments between these characters. The movie felt like a very compassionate, and like you said, there were themes in it that I really resonated with. Definitely some dark, tough to watch scenes, you know, and halfway through the movie, I was going like, is this too like cloying and sentimental? Like, is this too kind of just trying to like going for the gut to try to get you to feel something? If it was going to pay off, you know, if it was just like, oh, you're just trying to kick us in the balls and, you know, make us
like
cry.
it wasn't just a scene just to have a scene. It had a purpose.
Just to manipulate. I was wondering, like, is this just going to manipulate us into crying? But it didn't, you know. I felt like it was earned ultimately, and it made sense with the story. So
it's just so strange for you to say, is this going to manipulate me to cry? Because I feel like that's just all films that are sad. They're trying to manipulate you to cry. That's kind of like just a given, right?
I mean, no.
Isn't any like storyline trying to manipulate you to kind of invoke some kind of emotions out of you?
No, I think a good way to evoke emotions is like to meet the audience halfway. I think a movie that's being manipulative,
like you're saying the difference between invoking emotions versus trying too hard with a purpose versus trying too hard to just like put like different images out there just to,
well, yeah, and I guess
like just to invoke you in emotion without a goal in mind.
Well, no, the goal is to make you cry, but it's doing
like
everything.
An overarching goal.
I just mean like in terms of being manipulative and just not having tact and trying to bludgeon the audience with sadness just to get them to cry. It's different from actually having earned feelings. And it's a totally different feeling. You can tell when a movie's just trying to, you know, you see so many fucking Lifetime dramas that are just trying to get audience to cry and do it very cheaply, you know.
I'm glad this is not a Lifetime movie for you.
It's not, no. But had some issues with the pace, but otherwise, really a standout Marvel movie, and you wonder what Marvel's going to do with James Gunn on the other team now, you know?
Can we get to the spoiler?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Spoiler. Spoilers.
So I really liked, speaking of invoking emotions.
Yeah.
I really love the animal scenes with animal cruelty, really questioning. Like, I really loved how Rocket, before in previous films, like not a raccoon, kind of like, you know, teasing like people who treated him like an animal, and then really conforming to his identity in a good way as Raccoon the Rocket.
Well, it wasn't like he was conforming to his identity, like that theme of him like accepting who he is, you know, because
right,
and like letting go of that self-hatred because he sees himself as like an abomination, you know.
Well, exactly, and he has this negative ideology that I think like humans do, because you know, in the scene itself at the end, they say like higher forms of life. Yeah. Let's save the higher forms of life. And I think that's a very, very similar sentiment that a lot of humans echo, is that human lives are above animals. And not to get too into this, but you know, I really love that and appreciated that he himself was able to not conform, is what I mean, and not conform to societal standard that he's used to, accustomed to, because he's a speaking and talking raccoon, trying to conform himself into human world, gets out of that, and he doesn't assimilate anymore. He just instead states who he is. And I think there's a lot of like relatability to a lot of people. I think it can apply. And I really got so emotional because the practices that they were showing with animals, it's just so sad, because those are practices that are still true in our world.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's hard because, you know, like Rocket, he's able to speak and convey his emotions, but when he sees the raccoons and other animals at the end who are not able to convey their emotions in a way that humans understand, and he saves them, is really, like, I got really teary because it's so true. Like, we kind of equate emotions and pain to what we understand, but just because we can't understand someone's language doesn't mean that the pain is not existent. So I really admired that, because it's a really tough topic, and I was actually very surprised that a Marvel film to this scale was not dancing around, but like really like playing with this idea of human cruelty. I really appreciated the person who was a creator trying to create perfection, how they said like, you know, they modeled the earth after our earth. I think directly telling the audience that this film is symbolic, even though it's happening in outer space, in another world. I think it's so interesting. I think it's different. Directly, I got the message that like they were directly telling the audience, like, if you think this is bad, think about the world that we're creating ourselves, you know, and how we treat each other.
Well, some people are hypothesizing that the villain is like a dig at Disney, like the corporation, you know, he's trying to create, you know, a perfect world.
I think so, but I think it's also like, I think so. It's a lot of things. Animal, I think, is a very outright like theme there that you don't need to like have much analysis to identify, because it's literally showing you animal cruelty that is using practices similar to what we use today, if not the same. The other thing is othering other people, and also like the cages with little kids. I think that's very symbolic to like maybe not to get too political, but I think there's a lot of, I mean, if you've seen the news, you know what that's symbolic to as well. So there's that imagery of that, and then also it's kind of like trying to create a perfect world that looks perfect from the beginning. Like when, for example, the Guardians of the Galaxy just saved rocket, they landed on this planet that ultimately ended up getting destroyed, and it looks perfect. It's supposed to be perfect. You hear about these people worshiping this godlike creature who created them. But then when you actually dig deep, so when they drive around or walk around in the neighborhood, then they see, you know, gang violence, they see like robbery, they see fighting. And then you see that there is a lot of imperfection there because everyone is trying to compete into this. They're trying to conform to this ideology that everything's supposed to be perfect, everyone's supposed to be fed. And I think that for me was a lot of like criticism of capitalism, because you have this ideology within the capitalistic system that if you do everything perfectly, if you work hard, then you should be getting reward from it. But obviously real life is not that way. You see people who are working 14 hours making minimum wage, whereas like you can work 10 hours, 8 hours, 7 hours, whatever, making a lot more money because of your profession, because the opportunities are given. So it's really hard to make an idea that way, make a perfect world in that kind of sense. And that one, I really like the idea, like I said, of seeing something in the surface and hearing about something in the surface, assuming it to be perfect. Gamora says, you know, people worship him, the creator of these people, of these animals, creatures, like they worship him. But then so you think of them as above God, above like anything that you could destroy, which I think you can say about like big corporate culture. Like they're too powerful, they have too much money, for you can't touch them. They're creating all these jobs or whatever else. So this creator is experimenting with pain, using labor, right? A lot of trials and pains and errors that like isn't seen to create these perfect creatures. And then when you analyze them deeply, you see they're also flawed. These people are worshiping this creator, but this creator disposes of them because they're no longer valuable in his overall business plan. I don't know. Those are just like the ideologies that I kind of thought of. And that's why I rated it so high, because like I said, it really is interesting and very surprising to me that a Marvel film would have these different metaphors, in my opinion. So
it does come across as more of a political story than Marvel usually does. However, Marvel has been more political in recent years. You know, I think about the show, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought one of the most remarkable parts of the movie was that arc that Peter and Gamora have. You think the story is just going to be about him and her reconnecting. He's getting her to fall in love. You know, he's trying to force her to fall in love, but the end was I didn't expect it because I didn't think they'd go there. But, you know, they're closer. Yeah, but he's also like, you know, you have your own family. And he comes to accept like he needs to just be by himself for a while. And he goes back to Earth. But that shot of Gamora with like the space pirates or whatever, like that is her family, you know. So there's happy endings for everyone, but they're separate, you know. They can't all be, you know, frozen state forever. They have to do their own thing, you know.
And that's what I was saying in the non-spoiler section that I really liked about about the non-typical love story, because in any other film, I feel like it would be really easy for them to be together. But I think he was trying to make Gamora happen that died. And he kept saying, like, she just doesn't remember in the beginning. And I was, like, thinking in my head,
she's a different person.
She's a different person. What do you mean she doesn't remember? She never experienced any of these things to remember, you know?
Well, and it shows how much he has grown, because old Quill would have tried to force it, you know, but now he realized, and I think that shows his maturity, that he actually loves her, that he's able to, you know.
Well, it's just also funny because Gamora says that, like, it sounds like you're, like, in love with someone like my sister.
Oh,
and then, like, he, like, compliments her eyes. Is he going to fall in love with her? Because, you know, it'd be really funny if he actually was like, you know what? Like, actually, you're very much like the old Gamora. Like, this Gamora, because this Gamora is very different. She's had different experiences, but also, like, it's interesting. Another kind of question is, like, you know, you really think about it, like, who we are is based on our experience, right? So, like, we aren't exposed to, like, certain things. We're born into different class, born into different race even. It's really easy for us to have different experiences. So therefore, that experience will, like, shape the way we have belief systems in the world and what our perception is. And that is, I think, shown with this Gamora, is that she has had different experiences. She was able to, like, really, like, defeat her father, quote unquote, much earlier than the older Gamora, who really was hiding from the father in order to not, like, show different, you know, whatever those rings are called, I forget. And so, yeah, like, I just think, like, it's just interesting. And I really like that they didn't, like, progress her too fast, have these experiences that she didn't, and mold her into the same person that she was in in a different timeline, because she's not. And also, I thought about Loki, because they're having a season for Loki, and Loki that we know in the show is very different than the Loki that was in the movies. And then you have Loki who falls in love with Loki, not to make this section about Loki, but it's like, you know, there's a Loki who can't change, who ends up ultimately destroying the world, we think, at the end of the show. And then there's the Loki who actually changes because he falls in love with a different version of himself, you know? So
yeah, and I think, you know, the characters that they sent off, they did it really well. I thought Drax's thing with Mantis was really nice, you know, how, like, Drax is kind of accepting, like, that he's just, like, this fatherly character and very lovable, and Mantis telling him, like, yeah, you're stupid, and then, like, makes him forget, you know, and then Nebula just, like, whining and complaining at everyone, and being negative, and how she had to stop doing. I related to Nebula quite a bit because I like to complain about things, but so I thought that it came together really nicely, and there were some action scenes I thought were just kind of, like, messy and not fun, but also some good ones, you know, and the designs, like the creature designs, were fun, like when they go into, like, the weird membrane, like, ship that's, like, made of human or flesh or whatever, not human flesh, but flesh. That was really unique and interesting to see. So, like, these Guardians movies always have, like, the most interesting, fun elements in any of the movies. And
speaking of that flesh type of, I don't remember if it was real flesh or just kind of, like, imitating a flesh shopping center type of, like, vibe. Like, right outside of it.
Feels like a mall.
But, and that's, I think, what started my capitalism, like, ideology or criticism, maybe, that this film is trying to symbolize.
I don't think it's an anti-capitalist movie.
Well, I mean, that would be kind of weird, right? Because Marvel in itself is an industry.
Look, so. I don't think it's super... I think it's just vaguely, you know, it has that very on-the-nose, like, animal rights message, which is great, you know. But beyond that, I didn't really see much there for that.
Anything else?
Oh, one moment I did like, I haven't seen others talk about this, is Groot. You know, Gamora is talking about how it's, like, complaining, like, you know, he's just saying, I am Groot. You're just pretending like he's actually saying stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Then at some point in the movie, she
interprets
and she can understand him. And then at the very end of the movie, Groot says his first line, I think, in the whole series, that isn't, I'm Groot. He says, I love you guys. And I really loved that. And that gave me chills when I watched that, because it's like a sweet moment. At the end of the movie, they're all family. And then it's like, now we're family too. We can understand Groot too. We're part of the Guardians, you know? So it was a kind of meta, nice little moment that they put in there.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the dancing at the end. It was a celebration.
Yeah, actually, I really like that. Yeah. That
And
was
then I
really
like
sweet.
that the different characters go into different paths. They're really just trying to find out who they are themselves instead of like an entity, or instead of as a unit. And then I really, the funny thing is with these after scenes, like you see that Rocket is the leader now for the new Guardians of the Galaxy version, but Quill, he just has cereal with his grandfather and says Star-Lord will return. And it's just funny. Like, I just love those scenes. You can't decipher what's going to happen in the next film because of that. But I nonetheless love that it wasn't like, it was a nice, funny little after the movie scene. So, yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Well, thank you for watching, everyone.
Let us know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.